Hi everyone, welcome back to Brookdale Farm. Well, it's been a little while since we've had an opportunity to do anything to our little sunshine type C harvester that we are restoring. Getting the crop in and all of the other farm duties mean that we can't devote a lot of time to projects like this in the busy times. But we do have a little bit of spare time now, so it's time to get back on and do a little bit more to it. So we were working on the screens and shaker, and we have rebuilt most of the timber in here. We've still got a little way to go, but we've now got it to a point where it will all actually move correctly. One of the other things that we spent a fair bit of time doing off camera was cleaning parts up and getting them painted. This is some of the bits that we repainted here. There's other bits that are partway through being prepped and all of that sort of thing, but it's pretty boring to show all of that paint prep, so I just did it off camera. The next thing we need to do is to rebuild the screen. Now this is going to be a little bit tricky. There's not a lot of the timber left on here. So we're missing this side completely. We've only got a little bit of this side to copy, but that's going to be enough. The screen unfortunately has a crack running right down through there. So we may need to find another screen for this at some point, but for the moment we're going to just start remaking the timber. If we turn it over, we can see a little bit more of the timber. So we've got a piece down the back there, two side pieces, a piece that runs down the middle. We've got this front piece, and then this piece with fingers sticking out of it. Now we're missing a section of it, and I thought that was going to cause some problems for me, but I did actually manage to find that as I was cleaning all the dirt out of the bottom of here. And it turns out these are just nails. Big long nails, but nails nonetheless, which makes it a little bit easier if we are missing some. So this is the piece that was broken off, and as you can see, these are just big nails in here. It's going to be a little bit hard to knock them out and get them all straight again, but I think they're going to all be reusable, which is nice. So I've cut some timber for this to give us the right dimensions. None of it is yet cut to length, and the side bits need to be slit. So this piece here actually has a slit down the middle of it on this side, and the screen sits in the slot, and then there's some little metal tabs that have just been bent up to hold it in place. This is the top of the screen here, so this piece actually sits underneath, and these have a 45-degree angle cut most of the way along them to help everything slide in, fall into the screen. Also, most of the timber has got little cutouts like this in it, so we need to replicate that. For this front piece here, I've cut a piece of wood and I've just drilled it for the nails to go through so that we don't split it when we try and hammer them through. So the next thing we need to do here is to try and work out some dimensions. And because we don't have any pieces of timber that are actually the full length, that is slightly tricky. However, we do have the front piece still nailed on and the rear piece still nailed on. So we can work out how far apart they are easily enough. So, but because this piece is slotted, it's a little bit, until I pull it apart, I don't know how deep that slot is going to be. So I think what we are going to do is to leave the front and rear pieces a little bit too long. We're going to make up 3 sides of this frame, and then we'll be able to work out exactly how long it needs to be for this side to fit correctly. And we can put the centerpiece in later. So on this piece at the front is on the bottom, and that allows the chaff and straw to come over the top without having a lip to catch on. The back piece is on the top. That stops anything falling off the back of the screen and back down into the fan, although there is air blast coming through this way to move everything in the right direction. This piece here is cut halfway through to allow the bottom piece to fit in. So I think we're going to start there by making these 2 pieces fit together properly. Ideally, when you're cutting these, you want a nice fine-toothed tenon saw. I don't have one of them, so because we don't have a lot to do, we're just going to use the hacksaw. Okay, so I've put the slots in the timbers for the sides. I did this at a friend's place on their bench saw. The next thing we need to do here is to put this little 45-degree relief on here. Now I was going to do it on the bench saw as well, because I thought it came all the way to the end, but it doesn't. It stops in here a little bit further. So you can't just cut it easily with the bench saw. So we're going to do it by hand the way it was probably done when they made this. So there's 2 tools we're going to be using to put a chamfer on here. First one is the rasp, just particularly the rear pieces only have a very short chamfer on them. That's just a fairly coarse wood rasp. The other one is this tool here, which is a spoke shave. Because they're called that because they were often used for shaping the spokes on wooden wheels for horse-drawn wagons. So it's a wooden-bodied plane with a steel blade in here. I've never actually used one of these before. This one I inherited from my uncle. Thanks, Uncle Pip. And you clamp your piece of wood in the vise and you pull it towards you, and it just shaves off a little bit of wood. And depending on the angle you have it at, changes the depth of your cut. So you can take just a little bit off. This one's still a bit blunt. I've had a couple of goes at sharpening it, but I haven't got it quite right yet. Anyway, we're just going to work away at this until we've got this cut down to a 45-degree angle here. Alright, well I'm pretty happy with the way they turned out. It's not quite as perfect as if I had cut them on the saw, but it's far more satisfying to get the opportunity to learn to use a new tool that I have never used before. So we've got both side pieces done now. Next, if we come round the back, this rear piece here has reliefs in it as well. I'm just going to do these with the rasp because they're such short little sections, and so there's this piece and the front piece of wood are the same. There's bolt holes either side here where that piece with the nails in it goes down the front end. There's a screw hole here, so they've tried to lighten this piece of wood up as much as they can without reducing the strength around the screws and the bolts. So I'm going to mark out our other piece, and I'll just do this with the rasp next. Alright, well, these bits turned out quite well. I'm quite happy with them. I've done the front and the back. I think the next thing to do is to actually get the screen off the old frame, and there's really not a lot holding it on. I think there's a nail there. The corners are riveted, but I think other than that, it's just a couple of nails. So I'm going to get them out, and then we can start fitting up our new frame to the screen. Okay, so we've got the remains of the frame off. There really wasn't much left of it. It's held on with little tiny nails and some little tiny wood screws. There's not a lot holding it together. The corners here are riveted, but for the moment I'm just going to bolt them. I'm going to need to take this apart later anyway to get some paint on all of the timber to seal that up and stop it rotting. So these two side bits, just the tin goes in the slot, and there's some little tabs bent up top and bottom to help hold it in place. So I am just now going to start fitting it all together. Alright, so the first thing we're going to do is fit this side to it. Fit the screen into the slot. That looks pretty good. We'll do the same with this side. Next, we'll put the front section on and attach it to this side. Now remember, we haven't actually cut it to length yet because we weren't quite sure. We couldn't get an accurate measurement to cut it to length before. I think we need to just bring the screen forward a little bit. Well, that's looking pretty good. Try and keep out the way of the light here. We just need to square it up a little bit. That's actually fitting very nicely on there, and that has made the screen a lot more rigid even before we've really got anything holding it together. Next, we can drill the holes and put the screws in the front and back corner, and trim these pieces to length. Now we know exactly how wide the screen is. Okay, so we've got our screen sitting upside down now, and the next thing we need to do is to put the piece across the middle here. Now it's held in with a screw from this end, and it should have a screw down the other end as well. I don't have a screw for there at the moment. And then from the top there's a bundle of these little tiny screws that hold the screen straight onto it. So I'm going to clamp that end and put this screw in, and then we'll turn it over and put the screws in from the top, and I'll have to find a screw for that end a bit later on. Alright, next we need to drill the two holes that hold this piece of timber on that has all the nails sticking through. These nails just help to direct the larger pieces of straw right off the back, while any unthreshed grain can fall between them and go to the seconds, or get returned through the thresher. think they do get returned through the thresher on this one. So we just need to drill a couple of holes to put some bolts through to hold this in place. Okay, so this is just held on with 2 bolts coming through from the back. I don't want to put all of the nails in at the moment because I want to take them out again before I paint all of this. The timber's all going to get a couple of coats of paint to protect it so that when it's sitting out in the weather, which hopefully it won't be too much after all of this work, it's not going to deteriorate too fast. Okay, so I'm pretty pleased with the way this has all turned out. The next thing to do is to try and fit it into the rest of the winnowing section of the harvester. It should just slide in and sit on top of here. There's another piece of wood that needs to go on just above it to stop it bouncing up and down. And then it is held in place. There's 2 screwed rods here with wing nuts around this side, so you tighten them up to hold the screen in place. And to some extent there's some adjustment backwards and forwards on your screen, and this changes how clean your grain sample will be. So let's throw it in and see if it fits. Well, that fits fantastically, and it's great to have one more step done on our little harvester here. So next week, hopefully we're going to be doing some of the tin work underneath here, but we needed the screen done before we could do any of the tin work. So, but now that it's in, you can sort of see how it works a little bit better. The grain falls down here and gets spread out across the screen here. There's a fan in the back there that blows air from underneath. Anything heavy like the grain drops down and falls through here into a tray that takes it up to the grain bin. Anything that's really light just gets blown out the back and falls onto the ground here. Anything that's sort of got a little bit of weight in it, like unthreshed heads, wriggles off the end, and if it's small enough it will fit down between these fingers. If it's too big, like a heavy piece of straw or radish or something, that will sit on the fingers and go off the end. Depending on how far forward or back you slide it, you can have a little bit of a gap beyond the fingers that certain things will fall down between, fall down the gap. And that just depends on what your crop's like and what you're trying to get out, etc. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this little video. Thanks very much for watching, and I hope to see you again next time. Bye!